haven't looked at them, and so I don't even know what order they're in. Do you support giving Hanover County broader local taxing authority, such as meals tax, as proposed in the Hanover legislative agenda for the 2011 General Assembly? Thank you. Ms. Wynans?
We, at the county level, do need other sources of revenue. However, I don't believe the meals tax is the answer. However, some other forms of ways to receive revenue into the county would be acceptable. And it would also help us from being dependent only on our real estate tax, and that is a burden to our citizens. So I do support other forms of raising revenue, however, not the meals tax.
I'm going to take a different approach to this. I know this is on the legislative agenda that has been approved by the board to seek this authority from the state. However, in 2004, the citizens of this county had a referendum on these very taxes we're talking about and resoundingly said no. For us to go forward with this without citizen support, I think is wrong.
That is good sustainable development. End of question. Peterson.
Well, as Mr. Hazard said, I realize sustainability has been used heavily with Agenda 21, but sustainability is a word that means more than just that, though. Sustainability just means common sense approach to utilizing the assets and the resources we have in a responsible way without waste. Any of us that have grown up in my age knew we had to grow up very frugally, and we had to be very responsible with all our resources, and we have to do that today. So sustainability, in the sense of the true meaning of the word, is something we need to do. Sustainability in the sense of using it as an excuse to take away property rights, we do not need to do. But we all need to be responsible in our environment. We need to be responsible and not waste any of the resources we have. I like to say I was green when it was still a color. I built my home 20 years ago, and it's passive solar, it's earth sheltered, and I'm utilizing and preserving our energy resources. I think we all need to take that kind of responsibility on ourselves, but that is individual.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Gold. Thank you, Ms. Wynans.
I support property owners' rights, and you'll find that on my brochure on my website, and you found it 4 years ago when I ran. And however, I do believe that Hanover has a good comprehensive plan. I took a class taught by a professor from Virginia Tech, and there were people from all over the state, other supervisors. He held up Hanover County's comp plan and said, this is an example of a good plan that allows for rural areas and residential areas, and it is properly done. And it had citizen input. Maybe not as much citizen input as we'd like, but I think we're headed in the right direction, and I do believe that we can make it all work.
If inflation is 2% and population growth is 2%, what amount would you let spending go up by?
I think the answer I would give was as little as possible, and I think that our decision on the board in the last 4 years to cut the budget for the first time in the history of Hanover County speaks for how we all feel about spending. We have made a great effort to reduce our budget, and I think we will continue to do that for as long as we can and still maintain the services that our county needs to provide.
I think the formula doesn't help at all. What we're really talking about is if we want to live in the quality county, we have to do the core functions and do them well. That's education, that's law enforcement, safety, and infrastructure. Whatever it takes to do those at the best quality level, that we need to stand up and fund. The things that are not in those core functions, we need to be trimmed down to keep the cost down.
1 full minute on this one. When appointing a person to the school board, what are the 3 most important questions you would ask them?
First and foremost, you need to have a passion for youth. That's our youth are our future, and that's got to be the first thing I would be looking for in a appointee to the school board. Secondly, I would be looking for somebody who has the experience in administering budgets, because that's a big part, as half of our county budget goes to the schools, and it's important that it be done very responsibly.
Thank you. Ms. Wynans?
I think the first thing I would look for is their qualifications. Have they been involved in education in the past? The second thing I would look for is responsiveness to the community and to the families that are in the school system. That's very important because I often have questions from parents and I turn them over to my school board member because he knows more and he can give them a better answer a lot of times. And the third thing I would look for is somebody who's been involved in the school system. It had children in the school system and the PTA involvement, community involvement.
Have you ever
is very
switched
important.
from a political party or denounced a political party? If so, why? Wynans?
I have been a member of the Republican committee and I'm running as an independent. And when I signed up to vote when I was 18, many years ago, I told the lady I was a Republican. And she said, "Are you sure?" Because back then, all of Hanover was Democrat. So I decided to run as an independent because I feel like I can better represent the people. And I'm also a little disheartened by the bickering and arguing between the parties. And I want to represent the people I work for most
Mr. Peterson?
first.
Okay, I'm the Republican candidate for the Mechanicsville seat, and the simple answer to the question is no. However, I think it's very important to realize that the R, the D, the I mean a lot probably up till November 8th. Come November 9th, we're all belong to the same
Believe
party in
individual
America.
rights come from God or from government? Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I think this is going to be a uniform answer. All of us agree that God is the creator and our rights come from God. Government, basically set up by our forefathers, was supposed to be given, the rights were supposed to be given by us to the government, not the other way around.
Thank you, Mr.
God.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly-Weiss. Would you be in favor of term limits for the Board of Supervisor position? Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I do not believe in term limits, because you, the people in this room, as Mr. Wade said, we create term limits every 4 years.
I believe we already have term limits, and I think every time you go to the polls, that's your opportunity to set our term. And it's up to you. If you want us to stay, if you think we've done a good job, then you set our term.
We'll start with you, Ms. Jackson. Do you like the Tea Party principles? Limited government, less taxes, fiscal responsibility, constitutional adherence, others. Thank you, Ms. Wynans.
I think if you'll look at any of my literature, my website, from this time and last time, those are the top items on everything that I've produced. And I think that I have also represented that in the way I voted on the board. And I would also add individual freedom and rights.
Sorry about that, Mr. Peterson. Thank you.
These core principles of the Tea Party that were listed in this question are the same principles our founding fathers had when they established this country. And I thank the Tea Parties for making the country take a new look at these principles, and let's get back to them and not stray from them.
Thank you, Mr. Hazard. I recently refinanced my house, and the bank required the commercial appraisal to include at least 2 foreclosures to reflect market conditions relative to our Hanover County tax appraisal. What is your perspective on revaluation in our tax assessments to also include foreclosures and/or short sales? Mr. Peterson.
My understanding is that assessments in Hanover County do not include short sales and foreclosures as part of the process. And I believe that that's probably the best way to, as far as assessments, but assessments need to be made on real values, not where somebody just lost their shirt on a house. On the other hand, the question referred to the banks. The county does not control what banks require as far as that. That is private sector business versus government and should be kept separate.
Being a real estate agent, I've found that people want their assessment to be high when they get ready to sell and low the rest of the time. So I can't help you much there. But I do know that the state sets the rules. It should be based on actual value, and actual value is the houses that are around you, the similar houses and what they've sold for. That is true market value. So in concluding that, I think that we need to re-look at our regulation, and the state also needs to take a look at it so that we can make that decision based on true market value.
Let's go with this one for everybody. Would you support Hanover County adopting a policy of elected school board members? 30 seconds each, starting with Ms. Jackson.
I can tell you firsthand that other counties in Virginia are very envious of our system, and also you have to remember that if you go to elected school board, the next step is a taxing authority for school boards, and we don't need another tax.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Any elected board that has no taxing authority is an ineffective board. And we don't need another taxing authority, so we don't need an elected school board.
Final question for the evening. I can put it in a general form. What will you do to help strengthen business in our community? If you want to go on by reducing government regulations, but in general, what would you do to strengthen our business community? Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Well, echoing that sentiment a little bit, I have been preaching since this campaign started that it's time for us to start changing some of the stumbling blocks that this county puts in front of business into stepping stones. And if we do that, we can start bringing business, not just bringing business to town, it's taking our local businesses that are already here and helping them to grow and prosper. Because they're the ones that create the jobs for the people that are unemployed and for our 1,000 to 2,000 kids that we put out every year that are graduating and have no place to go to work.
Ms. Wynans?
One of the things I've actually already done, and I started working in 1999 with some other business people, is to get a small area plan for the village of Mechanicsville, one of the older commerce areas in Mechanicsville. And it will allow businesses that are already there to make changes that they couldn't have made otherwise because of the zoning regulations. So I've already started working on this. And also, as far as tourism, we welcomed over 2,000 people to our old courthouse to see the Parsons cause, and we're doing all we can to promote tourism. Thanks.